Hi. I wanted to come on today and share a little bit about a project I've been working on for quite a while, and that's my testimony. When I started the YouTube channel, it was really surprising to me because I never wanted to go public with the fact that I was a ritual survivor, an overcomer of ritual abuse, and I never really wanted to talk about what I had uncovered. There's a lot of healing and just processing that has to happen. So, for years, the way that I would process would be to write about what Jesus was teaching me in allegory fashion. And so it was kind of like a journal of my healing process. So when I would go to a memory, I would take the emotion of the memory and journal my emotion and how Jesus met me there. I didn't really talk about what had happened in the memory. And that's all I could tolerate for a long time. For years, that's all I could tolerate. And I didn't go public with that. That was probably about 13 years ago, maybe. So that grew, and then I just set it aside. And I got busy with ministry and helping others and just life. We've had 10 grandchildren in the last 9 years. So that's a lot of joy. And that's an important part of the healing journey is just learning to live in joy in the now, like what's happening right now, and not have your mind stay in the past trying to figure that out. So when I shared my testimony, I talked about finding out that I was SRA, but not a lot of the details about it. But I've had a lot of people ask if I've ever thought about sharing my testimony. So I started praying about it, and I felt very strongly that I was supposed to write some actual events. Now, I tried not to get too graphic with it, but there's a lot in the world of ritual abuse that's really strong experiences. So I did start writing the factual events out. And what I realized is it's so heavy. Although there is a lot of hope and healing and truth from Jesus in that, the worldview that you come away with is incredibly heavy. And I realized that the best approach was going to be to take my actual testimony and layer it in. Like, so some of the actual things that happened, and then layer in some of the journaling and the allegory of how Jesus met me, so that you can read the heavy things, but then your brain gets a break from the intensity of it, and you're still reading things that will help you on the journey, help you understand what overcomers are facing. But it's not too much at once, because just the straight facts of my testimony would be like a fire hose, drinking from a fire hose. It's so much. And I didn't actually even put all of my experiences in there. It's too much. So I was very careful in what I chose to put in there. And I was prayerfully writing about it, because as anyone who knows this community and this understanding of the worldview, there are people from every walk of life that are layered into the abuse and the programming. And so there are pastors that I've had contact with. There are both nationally and internationally. There are people in government positions, nationally and internationally, and there are people in finance. So I'm not trying to expose people. That is not my goal. So I didn't name any names. I named positions. And what I'm actually trying to expose is the enemy and this agenda that he has, because silence is the biggest part of that agenda. And in order for people to understand what's happening, some people are going to have to talk about it. And there are a lot of people talking about it. So I wanted to tell you who the book is for. It's for people that are trampled by life, no matter how hard they try to follow the Lord. People who are looking for emotional and spiritual healing. People who are supporting the ones who are overcoming ritual abuse. Counselors, deliverance, and inner healing ministers. People who want strategy and insight into generational freedom. And people who see corruption and twisted religion in the church system. So that's the target audience for the book. It's not going to be for everybody, and I know that. I've tried to prayerfully put it together, but I will say you will walk away with a different worldview if you don't already know this kind of information. And so with that in mind, I put a disclaimer at the beginning. I also put a prayer to pray, because it's going to be really important that you read this prayerfully and go as slowly as you can tolerate the information. Because a lot of times what happens when we're triggered is things start moving fast and we think information is going to help us. And it doesn't always do that. Sometimes it can overwhelm. So I'm asking everyone who reads it at the beginning to prayerfully read this and be accountable for your own emotions and what's happening internally while you're reading it. All right, so it's two books in one, and they're layered together like that. And I never really wanted to go public with it. It was just a matter of obedience. It was the timing right now is really important. So the Lord asked me to be transparent and humble, and so I tried to do that. I mean, the humble part isn't hard because, shame is a big part of programming. But there's a difference between humiliation and humility. And so I've tried my best to follow the Spirit of God, speak what He asked me to speak, and remain in humility while I'm writing it, and leave the results to Him. Okay, so in the book, I also put how you can discern if a leader is currently compromised. So it gives you some ways to understand what a leader with mind control might look like and how you might be impacted by that. And then there's also some coping skills. Like if you are an overcomer of ritual abuse, I just put in there the things that I learned along the journey that helped me cope and help me walk through it. There's some encouragement at the end. There's also some direction for just the body of Christ, because not every Christian is going to be the bride. Some are just the church. And the bride is going to be walking in purity. They're going to be walking in holiness and walking in repentance. So it's really important for us as Christians to know the difference and choose which one we want to be. Okay, I am working on getting breathing lessons into its own book. So let's say you think that reading actual facts might trigger you. Then just wait. Pretty soon, just the breathing lessons, which is the journaling part of it, that will come out on its own. So I understand the actual testimony isn't going to be for everybody, and I would encourage you to prayerfully choose if you should read it. I have to be really careful about who I listen to, what teachings I listen to, what testimonies I listen to. I'm very narrow in my choices of what I let in, because a lot of times people that are just beginning on their healing journey or don't even know that they have the healing to do, even if they're, you know, famous Christian leaders, if they don't know their own healing is necessary, there's a lot that can come through. So I'm encouraging you to prayerfully ask the Lord, is this something for me right now? Because I'm not going to assume that it is. Everybody needs to be hand in hand with the Lord in what they're choosing to let in, because it's not all edifying. And I've really focused on making this journey about Jesus. It's about how he meets us in the deepest pain and helps us overcome. It doesn't matter what the emotion is, what the event is. He always has an answer that ends in hope and healing and peace. We just have to be brave enough to face it. If we have the courage to go to the event, and then we have the strength to turn to him, even though he has been weaponized against us, if we have the strength to turn to him, he will help us overcome that event, no matter what it is. One thing that he told me about publishing the book is that there is a shroud of denial over mankind. And, you know, we all have denial at different levels. But when he called it a shroud, that was very telling to me, because a shroud is usually what they use in funerals. It's associated with death. And so if we have denial to the point where it's leading us away from life and away from truth, then we need to know. So no matter how hard it is to bring that down, we need that denial brought down. And so that's what he encouraged me to do, is just focus on the fact that he's coming soon, and he's going to swallow up the veil, and then he's going to swallow up death, and we're going to be with him. And so we can choose to do our part to get that veil as much as we can, that shroud of denial, down, so that we can be that pure bride that runs straight to him and not get distracted by what's going on in the world, and not get off the path and go down delusion's path straight into the Antichrist agenda. So that's why I feel like it's important for this time for my story to be published. We all have work to do. We all have denial that needs to come down. We all have humility and surrender that needs to happen, so that we can see Jesus as he is and welcome him in his return. So the book is available on Amazon. It's in paperback and in an ebook. Every country that has Amazon will have it available. And eventually I'd love to put it into an audiobook, but that's for another time. Right now, I'm working on getting this one out and publicized, and then I'm working on getting the breathing lessons on its own. And we'll just take one step at a time. So I wanted to thank you for joining in, and encourage you, if this is something that the Lord is nudging you to do, then read the book. And I hope that the light of Christ is so much stronger than when you started. And I pray that you walk away made into his likeness.